"Can I have your leftovers, kind sir?" asked Emeka, his small voice trembling but clear. The entire banquet hall went silent. Dozens of wealthy guests froze, forks in midair, eyes wide in disbelief. A barefoot boy had just stepped into their world of chandeliers, crystal glasses, and million-naira suits. His torn shirt clung to his thin frame, his stomach growling loud enough for those nearest to hear. At the center of the hall sat Mr. Obinna Okeke, the paralyzed billionaire, in a polished golden wheelchair. His suit was neat, his wristwatch bright under the lights. He looked at Emeka like the boy had brought dust into his living room. For a second, he said nothing. Then he threw his head back and burst into loud laughter that bounced off the high ceiling. "Did you all hear that?" Mr. Okeke called out, pointing at the small boy. "This street boy wants my leftovers." Some guests laughed with him. Others looked away, pretending not to see. A waiter shifted from foot to foot, unsure if he should help. Emeka stood where he was, hands folded in front of him. He did not blink. He did not beg again. He just waited. Mr. Okeke wheeled his chair a little closer, eyes sharp. "Boy, do you know who I am?" he asked. Emeka swallowed. "Yes, sir. People say you help the poor." "Help?" Mr. Okeke scoffed. "Help does not come to those who break into halls they don't belong to." "I'm sorry, sir," Emeka said softly. "I was very hungry. I only asked for what you won't finish." The hall shifted. A woman in a red dress whispered, "Such nerve." A man in a bow tie muttered, "Where is security?" Near Mr. Okeke, his wife, Madame Esther, watched the boy closely. She didn't speak. She just stared, as if something about the boy's face pulled at her. Mr. Okeke lifted his napkin with 2 fingers. "Leftovers," he said. "My food is not for the gutter." He looked around the hall again, raising his voice. "Someone take this child out. This is a charity banquet, not a bus park." 2 security men began to move forward, but Emeka took a small step first. He lifted his chin. "Sir, I didn't come to steal. I asked you with respect." "Respect?" Mr. Okeke laughed again. "You call this respect? You walk in here like you belong." Emeka nodded once. "I don't belong, sir. I just want to eat." Silence again. It was the kind of silence that makes plates feel heavy. Even the band stopped their soft tune. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Madame Esther leaned a little toward her husband. "Obinna, maybe?" He cut her off with a wave. "No, this is not a roadside shop." Emeka's eyes glistened, but he didn't wipe the tear. He looked straight at the billionaire. "Sir," he said, voice low but steady, "one day you will remember me." A few people gasped. One guest chuckled under his breath like it was a silly line from a film. But for a brief moment, Mr. Okeke's smile dropped. A tightness crossed his face and then disappeared. He forced another laugh, louder than before, like he needed the sound to cover something inside. "Take him out," he said. The guards reached Emeka. One held his shoulder. Emeka did not fight. He just looked at the plates on the table, half-eaten fish, jollof rice, soft bread, sauce still warm. His throat moved as he swallowed. The guard tugged him gently. Emeka let himself be turned. "Wait," Madame Esther said, her voice calm. Everyone looked at her. She faced Emeka. "What is your name?" "Emeka, ma." "How old are you?" 12, ma." She nodded slowly, eyes still on him. There was a strange pull in her gaze, like a string tying her to the boy, and she didn't know why. "Where are your parents?" she asked. Emeka looked at the floor. "My mother is gone, ma. I don't know my father." A whisper ran through the hall. Someone sighed. Someone else clicked their tongue as if the boy's life story was an interruption. Madame Esther pressed her lips together, thinking, but before she could speak again, Mr. Okeke's voice rose. "Enough questions," he said. "This is a charity event, but we have order. Security." The guards began to lead Emeka away. As they moved, a cameraman near the door raised his phone, quick and sneaky. Another guest put a hand on her chest, watching the boy like she wanted to help but was afraid. Emeka turned his head over his shoulder, eyes on the man in the golden wheelchair. "Thank you for your time, sir," he said. It was not rude. It was not bitter. It sounded like a door closing gently. Mr. Okeke shook his head and picked up his fork again. "Please continue," he said to the table. "Let us not lose our appetite because of street drama." People tried to go back to eating, but the food did not taste the same. Small talk returned, weak and thin. Laughter came in short bursts and died fast. The band started playing again, but off-key for a moment, like even the music felt uneasy. At the entrance, the guards stopped to open the door. Emeka looked at the lights one last time, the white tablecloths, the long centerpieces, the plates shining under the chandeliers. He did not look angry. He did not look proud. He just looked tired. Outside, the night air wrapped him, cooler and real. The guards let go. "Go home," one said. Emeka nodded. He did not have a real home, but he had a place where the wind didn't bite too hard. Back inside, Madame Esther still watched the door. She could feel something deep in her chest, a small ache she could not name. She glanced at her husband. He had already moved on to a joke with a man in a blue agbada. He laughed too hard again. Sounded big, but it felt hollow. A waiter came to clear a plate. There was still enough food on it to fill Emeka's small hands. The waiter hesitated, eyes flicking to Madame Esther. She gave the smallest shake of her head, then looked down, unsure why she did that. Mr. Okeke raised his glass for a toast. "To giving," he said with a smile. Glasses lifted. Some guests smiled. Some stared at the door like it might swing open again. It did not. The toast rang out anyway, clean and bright, like bells in a big church. "To giving," they replied. But under the bright lights, something had shifted. A tiny crack had opened in the perfect hall, and everyone could feel it, even if they didn't know its name. And while the billionaire enjoyed the last bite on his plate, the words of the barefoot boy still floated in the quiet parts of the room. "One day, you will remember me." The laughter would not leave the room. Even after the guests went home and the lights went off, it felt like Mr. Okeke's voice was still inside the walls. Loud, proud, mocking. "This street boy wants my leftovers." It rolled around the mansion like a song you don't like but cannot stop hearing. Upstairs, Madame Esther lay on her side, eyes open in the dark. She could hear the soft hum of the air conditioner, the distant sound of the gate closing, the quiet footsteps of night guards changing shifts. But under the quiet, she heard Emeka's voice again. "Sir, one day, you will remember me." She turned and faced her husband. He was already asleep, breathing slow, one hand resting on his chest. His golden wheelchair sat near the foot of the bed, parked and shining in the dim light. She watched it for a while, then sat up. "Obinna," she whispered. He didn't answer. She rubbed her temples. The boy's face would not leave her mind, thin cheeks, wide eyes, hunger fighting with dignity. Something about those eyes made her chest feel tight. Downstairs, a housekeeper gathered leftover plates from a side table. Food was still in them. A lot. She packed it into plastic containers, hesitated, then slipped 2 extra wraps of bread into the bag. She stopped at the kitchen door and looked back once, like she needed permission from the air, then left through the back path to give the food to the night guard for the boys at the junction in the morning. Across the city, under a zinc shed, Emeka sat on a low block with 2 other boys, small bodies, big eyes. The wind had a wet smell. It might rain. He unwrapped a small nylon with cold rice and a piece of dry fish inside. It wasn't much, but he broke it into 3 parts. "Take," he said, pushing food into their hands. One of the boys, the smallest, shook his head. "You found it. Eat more." Emeka smiled a little. "We all hungry." They ate slowly, like people who want time to move slow. A woman selling night akara across the road looked at them and turned her face away. A kiki rolled by and splashed water. Back at the mansion, Madame Esther stood and walked to the balcony. The compound lights made the grass look like a field in a picture. She wrapped her arms around herself. She felt cold, but it wasn't the air. It was that ache again. A memory pulled at her, half hidden, like a word on the tongue you can't say yet. She went back inside, opened the wardrobe, and pulled out a brown box from a low shelf. Inside were old pictures, weddings, birthdays, a few newspaper cuttings about Obina's business. She didn't know what she was looking for. She just knew the boy's eyes were a key and something in their past was the lock. Obina turned and blinked awake. "Esther," he mumbled. "What are you doing?" She kept flipping. "I can't sleep." He raised himself a little. "Forget that boy," he said, voice low, sleepy. "People always want to be seen. Tomorrow this will be nothing." She didn't answer. She paused at a picture of a much younger Obina in an old suit, a proud smile on his face, a woman beside him in a simple dress. The photo was faded and the woman's name was not written on the back. But there was something about the eyes. Those same eyes. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice careful. He stared at the picture, then shrugged. "An old friend," he said. "Very old." "Why?" "Her name," she said. "Do you remember?" "Esther, it's late." "Her name?" she repeated, not loudly, but firm. He looked away. "We all have our past." She put the photo down and faced him. "Obina, I watched a hungry child ask you for what you did not need, and you laughed. That laugh is still in my ear. I need to understand why that child's face looks like a face I have seen before." He exhaled. "You're tired. Go to bed." She sat on the edge of the bed and kept her eyes on him. "There was a name," she said. "Long ago. People spoke it in whispers. They said you planned to marry her before money came." Then she disappeared from the talk. "What was the name?" He closed his eyes like her words were too bright. After a while, he said, "Esther, I built this life so we don't have to dig in dirt." "I am not digging in dirt," she replied. "I am looking at our house and asking why it suddenly feels like it is standing on something weak." He opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. "Ngozi," he said softly, almost like he wanted the night to swallow the name. Her name was Ngozi. The name hung in the room. It felt heavy and familiar at the same time. Esther looked down at the picture again. "Where is she now?" "I don't know," he said, too fast. "Obina." "I don't know," he said again, then rubbed his face. "We were young. Things happened. I moved. She moved on." "And if she did not?" Esther asked. "If she did not move on? If she needed help and nobody answered? If a child is walking around with your eyes?" His jaw tightened. "You think that boy is mine because he has eyes?" His voice rose and then flattened. "Please, enough." She put the photo back in the box, but not far. She closed the lid and stood. "I cannot sleep," she said. "Not until I know who that child is." He turned his face to the wall. "Then you won't sleep." She watched him for a while. He pulled the blanket higher, as if it could cover the past. The room felt bigger than before, like there was space between them and it had a shape. Down the hall, a clock ticked. The sound was loud in the silence. Tick, tick, tick. Like a finger tapping a table when someone is thinking too hard. Outside, a small cloud broke. A few drops hit the balcony rail. Across the city, Emeka looked up at the first drops and pulled the smaller boy closer under the zinc. "We go manage," he said. "Will you go back there tomorrow?" the boy asked. Emeka shook his head. "No, not there. But I will find food." "From who?" Emeka looked at the dark street and the slow cars. "From anybody who has more than they need." Back at the mansion, Esther slid the box back into the wardrobe and closed it gently. She stood at the mirror and looked at herself. The boy's words moved through her again. "One day, you will remember me." She picked up her phone, stared at the screen, then dropped it back on the table. Not tonight, but she had made a decision. In the morning, she would find the boy. She didn't know how yet, but she would. She lay down again, eyes still open, the sound of rain growing. Beside her, Obina's breathing returned to slow and steady. In the quiet, the house listened, the city listened, and the past listened too. By dawn, the laughter would still be in the walls. But something new would be there with it, a question that refused to die. The morning did not kill the questions of the night. Madame Esther sat at the breakfast table, a spoon in her hand, but she was not eating. Her mind was far away, circling the name her husband had whispered hours before. Ngozi. The name was like a locked door she needed to open. Across from her, Mr. Okeke read the newspaper. He flipped the pages sharply, as if the sound of rustling paper could cover the silence between them. "You are quiet," she said finally. He did not look up. "I have work on my mind." "You mean you don't want to talk about last night?" she replied. He folded the paper slowly, placed it on the table, and looked at her. "Esther, I said what I said. She was just a woman I once knew. She is not part of my life now. But she might still be part of your past," Esther said firmly. "And that boy, Emeka, he might be a piece of it too." Okeke's jaw tightened. "You are imagining things. That boy is nothing but another hungry street child." "Then why did you say her name so quickly?" she pressed. "Why did you not even hesitate when I asked?" His eyes darted to the side. He did not answer. Esther leaned back in her chair, her voice softer now but sharp with purpose. "If you will not find out, I will." He glared at her, but she did not flinch. For years she had stood beside him, smiling at cameras, hosting guests, supporting his business empire. But now, she felt a new strength in her chest. Later that day, Esther met her old friend, Barrister Ada, in a small cafe far from the mansion. Ada was a lawyer who had helped her with charity projects before. "Esther," Ada said, sipping her tea, "you look troubled. What is it?" "There was a boy," Esther began. "A hungry boy who begged my husband for food. My husband laughed at him. But Ada, there is something about that child. He has a face I cannot forget. I need to know who he is." Ada leaned forward. "You think he is connected to Obinna?" Esther nodded. "Last night, Obinna mentioned a woman. Ngozi. Do you remember that name?" Ada frowned, thinking. "Yes, in the early years. Before he became wealthy. I heard he was close to a woman named Ngozi. Then suddenly, she disappeared. No one knew why." Esther placed her hand over Ada's. "I need you to help me find out. I need records. Hospital, church, anything. If that boy is who I think he is, then the truth must come out." Ada sighed. "You are asking me to dig into shadows, Esther. Are you ready for what you may find?" "I would rather live with truth than sleep with lies," Esther replied. Ada studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Give me a few days. I will find something." That night, while Obinna attended a board meeting, Esther sat alone in her room, waiting. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ada. "Come tomorrow morning. I have found something." The next day, Esther drove herself to Ada's office. She closed the door behind her and sat down quickly. "Tell me," she said. Ada placed a small brown envelope on the desk. "I went through old hospital files, baptism records, even parish books. Esther, the boy's mother was Ngozi." Esther's heart skipped. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Her name was listed as Ngozi N. She gave birth about 12 years ago. The boy's name, Emeka." Esther swallowed hard. "And the father?" Ada opened another paper, an old clinic record. "She did not write a name, but look here." She pointed at a column. "Next of kin, Obinna Okeke." Esther covered her mouth. For a moment, she could not breathe. Ada placed a faded photograph on the desk. A young Obinna, wearing an old suit, stood beside a smiling woman in a simple gown. Her hand rested on his shoulder. Esther touched the photo. She had seen this face in her dreams last night. The same eyes. Emeka's eyes. "This is proof," Ada said gently. "Ngozi and Obinna. Long ago. And now the boy remains." Esther leaned back, her chest heavy. "So it's true. My husband left a child behind." Ada nodded slowly. "What will you do?" Esther stared at the photo again. "I don't know yet, but I know one thing. That boy does not deserve to live on the street while his father dines in gold." Her hands trembled as she slid the envelope into her bag. She knew the truth now, and once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. That evening, back at the mansion, Esther looked at Obinna across the dining table. He was smiling, telling a joke to a visiting business partner. His laugh was loud, proud, strong. But Esther's eyes were not on his smile. They were on his eyes, the same eyes she had seen in Emeka, the same eyes she had seen in that faded photograph. She said nothing that night, but in her heart, she knew the time was coming when silence would no longer be enough. And outside, somewhere under the zinc roof again, Emeka curled himself against the wind. He was still hungry, but he whispered a prayer into the dark. God, don't forget me. The scream came so suddenly that Madame Esther's driver slammed the brakes. Madam, boys! He shouted as 3 teenagers rushed from the corner. One banging on her SUV window, another yanking at the back door. Give us money. Open the door. One yelled, holding a sharp bottleneck. Esther's heart pounded. She was returning from a charity visit and had insisted her driver slow near the market road to hand out food. Now the boys surrounded the car. Drive, Esther shouted. The driver tried, but one boy stood in front of the car, daring the SUV to move. Another yanked harder at the handle. And then, out of nowhere, a small figure ran into the scene. Leave her alone, the voice shouted. It was Emeka. He grabbed a stone from the ground and flung it at the boy with the bottleneck. It hit his shoulder. The boy cursed and staggered back. Emeka threw another, shouting again, Police is coming! Run! The boys panicked, glancing around. Horns blared from cars behind the SUV. One of the teenagers spat on the ground and barked, We'll meet you again! Then they ran off into the alleys. The driver exhaled in relief, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. Esther, still clutching her handbag, stared at the boy standing in the middle of the road. His chest rose and fell fast. His clothes were even dirtier than the last time she saw him. It's him, she whispered. The boy from the banquet. She quickly opened the window. Come here, she called. Emeka froze, unsure. Don't be afraid, she said, her voice softer now. Please come. Slowly he walked closer. His bare feet slapped the dusty road. Sweat dripped down his forehead. He stopped just near the window, eyes cautious. Are you hurt? Esther asked. He shook his head. No, Ma. Get in, she said. You can't stay here. The driver looked at her through the mirror, uncertain. Madam, is it safe? She nodded firmly. Open the back door. The door clicked open. Emeka hesitated, then climbed in. He sank into the leather seat, shrinking into himself, as if the car was too big for him. Esther turned slightly to face him. You saved me just now, she said gently. Why? Emeka stared at his hands. Because they wanted to hurt you, and you don't look like someone who should be hurt. Her chest tightened. What's your name again? Emeka, Ma. How old are you? 12. She nodded slowly, studying his face up close. The resemblance was even sharper now. The same nose line, the same eyes. She felt her heart twist. Where is your mother? She asked quietly. She died, he said simply. And your father? He looked out the window. I don't know him. The driver glanced at Esther again. She kept her eyes on the boy. Come with me, she said at last. Let me get you food and rest. No, Ma, Emeka said quickly. I don't want trouble. You won't be in trouble, she assured him. You helped me. Please, just for tonight. Emeka hesitated, then nodded. The SUV rolled into the mansion compound 30 minutes later. Guards saluted as the gates opened wide. Esther stepped out first, then signaled for Emeka. The guards stared at him, confused. He shrank behind her. It's fine, Esther told them. He is with me. They walked inside. The house smelled of polish and perfume. Chandelier lights glittered above. Emeka looked around, his mouth slightly open. Sit, Esther said, pointing to a chair at the dining table. She told a maid, bring food, quickly. The maid disappeared and returned with steaming plates. Emeka stared at the rice, the stew, the meat piled on top. His throat moved as he swallowed. Eat, Esther said softly. He picked up the spoon and began, slow at first, then faster. Tears mixed with his food as he ate. Esther watched quietly, her chest heavy. The front door opened suddenly. The sound of wheels on marble followed. Mr. Okeke rolled into the dining room. He stopped when he saw the boy. His eyes narrowed. "What is he doing here?" his voice thundered. Emeka froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. Esther stood, calm but firm. "He saved me today. Some boys tried to attack. He helped me. I brought him here." Okeke wheeled closer, his eyes sharp on Emeka. "You again?" he sneered. "Do you think this is a playground? Do you think you can walk into my house the way you walked into that hall?" Emeka's hand shook as he put down the spoon. He looked down at his lap. "Obinna," Esther said, her voice steady. "Look at him properly." "I have seen enough," Okeke snapped. "Send him out." "No," Esther said, stepping between them. "You laughed at him in front of the world. But today he risked himself for me. You owe him at least a look. A real look." Okeke glared at her, then back at the boy. For a moment he saw it, those eyes. His laughter from the banquet echoed in his head. But this time it sounded different. Sounded like shame. He spun his wheelchair angrily toward the hallway. "Do whatever you want. But don't bring this boy near me again." He wheeled off, his shadow stretching long behind him. Esther turned back to Emeka, who sat small in the giant chair. She knelt beside him, touching his arm gently. "Don't mind him," she whispered. "You are safe here tonight." Emeka nodded, but his voice was soft when he spoke. "Why does he hate me so much?" Esther blinked back her own tears. Maybe it's not hate. Maybe it's something else. Something he cannot face yet." She smiled faintly at him. "Finish your food. Tomorrow we will talk more." As Emeka lifted the spoon again, Esther sat back slowly. Deep inside, she knew. This boy was the piece of truth her husband had buried for years, and no amount of laughter or shouting could keep it hidden forever. "You laughed at a hungry boy," Madame Esther said, voice low and steady. "But did you laugh at your own son?" The words hung in the living room like a bell that refused to stop ringing. Mr. Okeke's hands tightened on the arm of his golden wheelchair. He tried to smile, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Esther, don't start," he said. "I will not allow madness in my house." "It's not madness," she replied. "It is truth trying to enter." Emeka sat very still on the edge of the couch, his plate now empty, his eyes moving from Esther to the billionaire and back again. A maid stood at the doorway, unsure if she should breathe too loud. "Go to the guest room, my dear," Esther told Emeka gently. "Take a bath. Clothes are on the bed. Rest a little." Emeka rose. "Thank you, Ma." He slipped away. When his small footsteps faded, Esther turned back to her husband, opened her handbag, and brought out the brown envelope from Barrister Ada. She placed it on the glass table between them. "What is that?" Okeke asked, even though his eyes already knew he didn't want to see. "Something you must look at," Esther said. She slid a faded photograph out and held it up. A younger Obinna stood beside a woman in a simple dress. The woman's hand rested on his shoulder. They were smiling like the world was about to open for them. "Who is this?" Esther asked quietly, even though she knew the answer. He looked at the picture, then away. "Old story. Her name was Ngozi," she said. "You're Ngozi." He swallowed. "Esther, I told you, this was long ago." She set the photo down and brought out a folded clinic paper. "This is from a small clinic near Coal Camp. A woman named Ngozi registered there 12 years ago. She gave birth to a boy. She did not write a father's name." Esther tapped the page with her finger. "But here, next of kin, Obinna Okeke." He stared at the paper. Then he laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that sounds like a door banging in the wind. "Anyone can write my name. You think paper means truth? People use my name every day to beg money." Esther leaned in. "Then let us seek truth that paper cannot twist." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "A test," she said. "Simple, clean, final." His eyes flashed. "You will not do any nonsense in this house." She did not blink. "It is already done." Silence. Even the air seemed to stop moving. "What did you say?" he asked. She kept her voice calm. "When Emeka bathed last night, his old cap was on the chair. I took a hair from the inside. I sent it this morning. The lab rushed it for me." "You did this behind my back?" he snapped. "I did it for your face," she said. "So you can look in a mirror without lies." He rolled his chair forward so fast the wheels squealed. "You think I will accept a street boy because you found one picture and one paper? Because you feel guilty?" "I am not guilty," Esther replied. "I am awake." He pointed at the door. "Send him away. Now." "I won't," she said. He stared at her. The stare turned into a glare, but her eyes did not move. After a long moment he looked away, chest rising and falling too fast. A soft knock broke the silence. The butler stepped in with a small sealed envelope. "Ma," he said, "a dispatch just delivered this." Esther reached for it, hands steady even though her heart was pounding. She opened the seal, slid out the report, and read. She took a breath, then another. She lifted her eyes to him. "Well?" Keke asked, voice tight. She read aloud, every word slow and clear. Paternity analysis result. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. The room felt smaller. The golden chair didn't shine as much. The chandelier lights looked colder. Okeke let out a short laugh that sounded broken at the edges. "Numbers," he said, shaking his head. "Just numbers on paper." Esther did not shout. She stood, walked around the table and placed the report on his lap. "These are not just numbers. This is blood speaking." He looked down at the page. He read once, then read again. His mouth opened, then closed. His fingers pressed into the paper so hard it bent. He tried to laugh again, but the sound cracked. His face lost its color. He swallowed. The word stuck. He tried again. "I laughed at him." Esther nodded, eyes wet now. "Yes. In front of everyone," he said, voice small, as if he was no longer talking to her but to something inside him. "I mocked him. Yes. I called him gutter." She breathed in. "You did." He lifted his head slowly, eyes shining with tears he was fighting. "And he is my son." Esther did not touch him yet. She let the truth sit because truth needs space to work. His hands began to shake. The report slid from his lap to the floor. He covered his face with both palms and tried to hold in the sound building in his chest. It didn't stay in. A raw, ugly sob tore out first. Then another. Then he laughed. A short, broken laugh that turned into crying again. "I laughed at my own blood," he whispered. "I laughed at my own blood." Esther kneeled beside the wheelchair now and placed a hand on his arm. "Then stop laughing," she said softly. "Start fixing." He shook his head slowly, like a man waking from a bad dream. "How do you fix this?" he asked. "How do you wash a laugh off a child's face?" "You begin," she said. "You begin now." Footsteps sounded at the corridor. Emeka stood at the door in a clean shirt that hung a little big on him. He stopped when he saw the man in the wheelchair with wet eyes and the woman kneeling beside him. "I can come back," Emeka said, voice shy. Okeke turned toward the sound of that small voice. For a second, he could not speak. His lips trembled. He looked at the boy's eyes, the same eyes he had looked away from all his life, the same eyes that had begged for leftovers. "Come," Esther said gently to the boy. "It's okay." Emeka stepped in, slow, careful, like the floor might break. He glanced from Esther to the billionaire. Okeke opened his mouth. Nothing came. He tried again, words stuck to tears. He started, then broke off and covered his face once more. Esther squeezed his arm. "Obinna," she whispered. "Use your voice for truth." He pulled his hands down and forced the words out, rough and honest. "I am sorry," he said to Emeka. "I am so sorry." The boy nodded once, unsure what to do with a rich man's apology. The room breathed again. The report lay on the floor, white and plain, but heavy like a stone dropped in deep water. And for the first time since the banquet, The house was quiet without the echo of cruel laughter. Only the truth remained, sitting between father and son, asking what they would do next. "He will sit at my table." That was the last thing Mr. Okeke said before wheeling himself out of the dining room. His voice had been shaky, but the words carried a weight that shook the house. The next morning, the mansion was tense. Breakfast was served, but no one ate with peace. Two of Mr. Okeke's older children from Madame Esther sat stiffly at the long table, their faces tight with anger. They whispered to each other and kept glancing at Emeka, who sat quietly at the far end. "Why is he here?" the elder one, Chika, muttered, not caring if her mother heard. "He should be outside with his street friends." "Exactly," her brother Nonso added. "Imagine a boy from the gutter sharing food with us. Daddy has lost his senses." Emeka lowered his eyes, his spoon hovering above his plate. He had never eaten bread so soft or eggs so fresh, but every bite felt heavy with the insults thrown his way. Madame Esther placed her cup down sharply. "Enough," she said. "No child in this house will speak of another like that." "But Mummy," Chika started. "No, but," Esther cut her off. "He is your father's son, whether you like it or not." The words made the air heavier. Nonso pushed his plate away. "We will not accept him. Never." He stood and stormed out, his sister following behind. Their footsteps echoed up the stairs. Emeka looked up slowly, guilt all over his face. "Auntie, maybe I should go. I don't want to spoil your family." Esther turned to him gently. "No, my son. You are not the problem here. The problem is truth people don't want to face." He blinked. "But they hate me." She touched his shoulder. "Hate often comes before acceptance. You just wait." At that moment, the sound of wheels came from the hallway. Mr. Okeke rolled in, his eyes stern. The children's voices had clearly reached him. He stopped near the table and looked at Emeka. "You will not leave this house," he said firmly. "Do you hear me?" "Yes, sir," Emeka replied softly. Mr. Okeke turned his gaze toward the stairs where his other children had disappeared. "If anyone has a problem with my decision, let them bring it to me directly. Not through whispers." The staff in the room lowered their heads. Madame Esther exhaled, her hand still resting on Emeka's shoulder. Later that afternoon, the tension spread. Relatives called. An uncle stormed into the house, his voice raised. "Obinna, what are you doing? This street boy is not part of us. Do you want to destroy everything you built?" Mr. Okeke faced him with steady eyes. "Everything I built is nothing if I cannot face my own blood." "You are making a mistake," the uncle spat. "This boy will scatter the family." Okeke's voice hardened. "The family was scattered the day I laughed at him. I will not repeat it." The uncle left fuming. By evening, even the workers in the house whispered. Some pointed when Emeka passed. Some shook their heads. But he kept quiet, his small hands tucked in his pockets, his eyes always on the ground. That night he sat in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. Madame Esther walked in and found him awake. "You are not sleeping?" she asked. He shook his head. "I don't want them to hate you because of me." She smiled sadly. "Don't worry about me. I can carry their words. But you, don't let their hate make you forget who you are." He looked at her. "Who am I?" She sat on the bed beside him. "You are Emeka, a boy strong enough to stand in a hall full of rich people and ask for food. A boy brave enough to face thieves on the road. And now, the son of a man who is finally learning the truth." His eyes watered, but he nodded. Meanwhile, in his private study, Mr. Okeke sat alone. The DNA report lay open on his desk, the faded photograph beside it. He stared at them, his chest heavy. His phone rang. It was his lawyer. "Chief," the voice said, "rumors are spreading. If this gets out, it could damage your name, your company, everything. Control it before it grows." Okeke closed his eyes. He remembered the boy's soft voice. "One day, you will remember me." When the call ended, he wheeled to the window. The mansion lights glowed outside. Somewhere in the rooms upstairs, his children were plotting against the boy. But in another room, Emeka was sleeping, finally under a roof, not under zinc. Mr. Okeke pressed his palm against the glass. "He will sit at my table," he whispered again, more to himself than anyone else. And in that quiet moment, he knew a war had begun. A war inside his house. A war inside his heart. A war between the past he had buried and the future he could not run from. The house was divided, but the truth had already taken its seat, and no one could push it away. "You will not sleep on the street again," Mr. Okeke repeated, his voice heavy but clear. "From now on, this house is also your home." Those words marked the beginning of change, but change never comes without fire. The next morning, Emeka woke up in a real bed for the first time in his life. The sheets were soft, the room smelled of polish, and sunlight streamed in through wide curtains. He sat up slowly, still not believing the space was his. For a moment he thought it was a dream. Then Madame Esther knocked lightly on the door and entered with a smile. "How was your sleep?" she asked. Emeka rubbed his eyes. "It was soft, Ma. I almost didn't know how to lie down." She chuckled. "You will get used to it. Come, let's get you ready for the tutor." "Tutor?" Emeka asked, surprised. "Yes," she said. "Your father has arranged lessons for you. You must go to school, Emeka. You deserve that." He blinked, his mouth parting in shock. "School? For me?" Esther nodded. "Yes, you are not a street boy anymore." Downstairs, Mr. Okeke sat with a stern face, speaking to two men in suits. Private tutors. "I don't care what it takes," he told them. "Bring this boy up to speed. Start with the basics. Reading, writing, numbers. If he struggles, find another way. But he must learn." The tutors nodded and left. Esther looked at him. "You are really trying." He sighed. "I don't know if it's enough, but I will try." She touched his arm. "That is all that matters." Later that day, Emeka sat nervously with a notebook. The tutor smiled. "Write your name," he instructed. Emeka bent over and wrote slowly, "Emeka." The tutor nodded. "Good. Now read this sentence." He pointed at a line in a book. Emeka struggled. He sounded out the words one by one, sweat forming on his forehead. Mr. Okeke rolled into the room just then. He watched his son struggle, his small lips moving with effort. "Try again," the tutor encouraged. Emeka's voice cracked. "The boy is running." Silence followed. Emeka dropped the book, ashamed. "I can't," he whispered. Okeke wheeled closer. "Look at me," he said firmly. Emeka looked up slowly. "When I was your age, I sold groundnuts on the street," Okeke said. "I did not know how to spell my own name, but I learned." "Do you know why?" Emeka shook his head. "Because I refused to remain small," Okeke said. "And you will not remain small either. You will learn. You will rise. Do you understand?" Tears filled Emeka's eyes, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." "Good," Okeke said. "Now pick up that book again." But not everyone in the house was happy. Upstairs, Chika and Nonso argued in hushed voices. "We must stop this nonsense," Chika hissed. "Daddy is losing his mind. He is treating that boy like a prince." Nonso clenched his fists. "If we don't stop it now, he will take everything. Our inheritance. Our future. We will make him feel unwelcome," Chika decided. "If he thinks this house is his, he is wrong." That night at dinner, the plan began. The long table was filled with food. Emeka sat quietly with his small portion. Nonso smirked and said loudly, "Strange how this table now has beggars sitting at it." Chika laughed harshly. "Next time maybe we should bring in all the street boys and let them eat with us." Emeka's spoon froze. His chest tightened. He wanted to leave. Esther's eyes flashed. "Enough," she snapped. "This wickedness will not continue." But Nonso leaned back, sneering. "Mummy, you cannot change facts. He is not one of us. He is dirt, and dirt cannot sit with kings." Emeka dropped his spoon. "I will go," he said softly. "I don't want to cause trouble." "Sit down," Okeke barked suddenly. His voice thundered across the table. Everyone froze. Okeke's hands gripped the wheels of his chair. His eyes were fierce. He is my son, my blood. If anyone in this house cannot accept that, then it is you who must leave, not him. Chika gasped. Daddy! Silence, he roared. This is my decision. He will sit at this table. He will learn. He will grow. And he will take his place as my son. The table went quiet. Chika and Nanso exchanged dark glances but said nothing more. Emeka sat down slowly, his eyes wide. His heart pounded at the weight of the billionaire's words. Later that evening, Esther found her husband in his study. He sat in silence, staring at the old photograph of himself and Ngozi. You defended him, she said softly. Keke didn't look up. I had to. They will not destroy him the way I once destroyed his mother. Esther touched his shoulder. You are changing. He closed his eyes. I don't know if it's enough. That same night, when everyone was asleep, Emeka snuck out to the back gate. He carried a nylon bag of bread and fruits from dinner. 2 street boys were waiting outside the wall. You came, one whispered. Emeka nodded. Here, share it. The boys grabbed the food, smiling. Thank you, Emeka. You didn't forget us. Emeka smiled faintly. I will never forget. Even if I eat on golden plates, I will not forget. From a window upstairs, Esther watched quietly. Her lips curved into a sad smile. She whispered to herself, this boy has more heart than all of us. And in his room, Mr. Okeke sat awake. His phone buzzed again. Another warning from the company board. Sir, this story about a street boy in your mansion is spreading. Handle it before it ruins us. He dropped the phone on the table, heavy in thought. Tomorrow he knew a bigger decision would come. But tonight, he let the truth settle. His son was no longer outside the gates. He was here inside, and no one could throw him out again. This boy is my son. The words fell like thunder across the glittering hall. Guests froze with wine glasses in hand, their laughter dying in their throats. Cameras clicked. Phones rose. Every eye turned toward Mr. Obinna Okeke, seated proudly in his golden wheelchair at the center of the grand gala. And beside him, Emeka stood awkwardly in a new suit, his hands trembling at his sides. The same hall where weeks ago the boy had begged for leftovers was now filled with the same rich voices, voices that had once mocked him. Murmurs spread like fire. Did he say son? Impossible. How can that be? One man in Agbada shook his head. Chief Okeke has gone mad. But Okeke's voice cut through the noise again, sharp and steady. Yes, I laughed at this boy the day he begged me for food. I mocked him before all of you. But what I did not know, what I refused to see, is that he is my own flesh, my blood, my son. Gasps erupted. Some clapped hands to their mouths. Some shook their heads in disbelief. The reporters at the back rushed forward, snapping photos. Emeka's heart thudded. He wanted to disappear, but Madame Esther reached from the side and touched his arm gently. Stand tall, she whispered. This is your moment. From the front table, Chika rose angrily. Daddy, you cannot do this here. Not like this. You will shame us. Okeke fixed her with a stare. No. What shames us is hiding the truth. What shames us is mocking the poor while our own blood sleeps under zinc. The hall buzzed louder. Nanso stood too, fists clenched. This is wrong. You can't throw us away for him. Okeke's voice hardened. No one is being thrown away, but this boy will not be thrown out either. He belongs here as much as you do. The siblings exchanged furious looks but sat down, their faces burning under the stares of guests. A man from the business board tried to stand. Chief, think of the company. This revelation. Okeke raised a hand. The company will not save me from judgment. Money will not erase the past. But maybe truth can. He turned his wheelchair to face the cameras. Tonight I make it clear. This boy is my son. And in his mother's honor, I am creating the Ngozi Foundation. From this day, millions will go to feed and educate children who sleep hungry the way he once did. Applause broke out, scattered at first, then stronger. Some guests still whispered and shook their heads, but others stood, clapping harder. Emeka stared at his father, his throat tight. "Sir," he whispered, barely audible. Okeke turned. "Yes, my son? I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," Okeke replied softly. "Just stay. That is enough." Reporters shouted questions. "Chief, when did you discover the truth? Will this boy inherit your wealth? What does this mean for your other children?" Okeke ignored them, focusing only on Emeka. He held out a hand. "Sit with me." Slowly, Emeka sat down beside him. The lights from the cameras flashed in his eyes, but he did not look away this time. He lifted his chin, even as his heart raced. Esther leaned close and whispered, "The same hall that saw you mocked is now seeing you honored. God writes stories no man can erase." Another man muttered as he passed, "This will not end well." But Okeke wheeled forward, his voice firm. "It will end well, because the truth has started." Later that night, when the crowd thinned, Okeke and Emeka sat quietly in the emptying hall. Plates clattered in the background as workers cleared tables. Emeka shifted in his seat. "Why did you do it in front of everyone?" "Because I failed you in front of everyone," Okeke answered. "I laughed at you where the world could see. So I must repent where the world can see." Emeka's eyes burned with tears. He whispered, "They will never stop talking." "Let them talk," Okeke said. "We will live." Back at the mansion, Chika and Nanso slammed their bedroom doors. Their whispers grew into angry plans. But downstairs, in the quiet study, Esther watched her husband and Emeka side by side. "You have started something tonight," she told him. "Yes," he said. "Something I should have started 12 years ago." Emeka looked at him with wide eyes. For the first time, he didn't see a man in a wheelchair. He saw a father. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "God never forgets." And the house, once divided, felt the first crack of healing spread through its walls.